Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. I worked for the church education system for 27 years. One common thread in most of our stories, most everybody who has doubts and who begins to leave, at one time or another, usually says, I hate it that they lied to me. I just felt so deceived. I hate it that all those years I was taught all this stuff, and I got up and bore my testimony. I taught the classes and said, it's true. And imagine what it feels like if you were paid to teach and you were spinning everything every day. So at a certain point in my professional life, I stopped the spinning, and that's when I started getting in trouble. But deception is the common thread. Today we're going to look at this as the Mormon Church uses deception and lying, prevarication, evasiveness, code words, all of those and more, as a practical management tool for their organization to keep members believing, practicing, and more importantly, contributing to this large, well-to-do organization. In a book published in 2008, Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me, by Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson, they compile decades and decades of research on cognitive dissonance. And one line from their book is this, that it all begins with self-justification, then self-deception, and then deception as you interact and interface with others. I'll just read the quote. Self-justification is a hardwired mechanism that permits us to sleep at night, but can also block us from seeing our flaws and mistakes. It's nearly impossible for humans to say, I was wrong and I'm sorry. For some reason, most of us don't see that as a virtue. We see it as a sign of weakness. So today, we are going to pull back the curtain just a little, like Dorothy and Toto, and we're going to look at how lying was instituted by Joseph Smith, how it was carried on by subsequent leaders to Smith, and how it's still being used today in a very effective way, but maybe not so quite effective as it was a few years ago. We are taught that, much like the Wizard of Oz, that leaders of our church are wise, purely benevolent, completely honest, benignly angelic, and nearly infallible, and that they only have the best of intentions for almost everything they do. Research tells us about humans that sometimes we're truthful and sometimes we're not quite as truthful with each other. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes intentionally. And we're all very similar in that way. It seems that the Latter-day Saints and their leaders wish, however, to take exception with that and not be part of the human race, but to say, we rarely, if ever, make mistakes because God is telling us what to do from moment to moment, day by day. Latter-day Saints are effective talkers. And I could have picked one of 100 or more talks about lying or about honesty that have been given in general conferences or written in church publications, or especially out of the seminary and institute curriculum given to the young people, where sober words about honesty are uttered by sober men in black suits in the conference halls. Marvin Ashton said, a lie is any communication given to another with the intent to deceive. So I thought, let's use Marvin Ashton's own words and juxtapose those against the actions of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from 1830 to the present as a way of highlighting how deception is such a practical management tool. The leaders are in impressive surroundings. The lights are darkened in the hall. There's literally a light from above shining on the shiny head of the person speaking. There, it is utterly quiet. It is a room full of people who literally idolize and adore this individual. And the individual was not introduced as Jerry or Dick or Richard or Ken or Sherry or Marvin, Elder Marvin J. Ashton of the Quorum of the 12. And so that kind of impressive surrounding gives even more weight to the kind of authority that they are trying to project to the members. And it's very effective. Well, he said, sometimes we lie to avoid personal embarrassment. And I thought about Joseph Smith when he was caught by Emma having sex with Fanny Alger in the barn in 1835 when she was 17. And he quickly scrambled to self-justify that he had received a revelation from the Lord that he was to begin practicing plural marriage, and that she was indeed his first wife, and then her uncle Levi Hancock solemnized the thing. And still sent her away. But I thought about that and thought, Marvin, you're right. Sometimes we do deceive to avoid personal embarrassment. He said financial setbacks may be explained to others with untruths. And I thought about the Kirtland Bank scandal, where he declared boldly that God had spoken to him directly and said, you'll become wealthy if you invest your money, your savings, in the banknotes. And when it all came crashing down, how many people lost their life savings? And in 1837-38, hell of a lot of money for them. Marvin Ashton said, sometimes people lie to destroy others. And I thought about the wonderful piece in Arza Evans' book, where he pays tribute to brave women, young women who Joseph Smith gathered affidavits because they turned him down when he proposed to them as plural wives. He gathered affidavits. He persuaded people to lie by threatening to ruin them and ruin their character if they did not sign the affidavits. He publicized that they were whores, mean harlots, and liars. And I thought, that's right, character assassination through deception. I thought about when he said lies are often a lack for courage, excuses for lack of courage. Again, you think about Joseph Smith when he was caught lying about Nancy Rigdon's proposal by her father, and he handed Joseph the letter that he had written to Nancy following up on the proposal, and Joseph continued to dissemble. He said, there are some who would have us believe there is no right or wrong, that everything is relative. And again, I thought of the letter he wrote to Nancy Rigdon, where he said, that which is wrong under one circumstance and may be and often is right under another, after Nancy turned him down. And you know that the general authorities today pound on ethical relativism. It was one of Neil Maxwell's favorite topics, and yet Joseph Smith is a shining example of ethical relativism. And finally, he who lies is the servant of the lie, and he who tells the lie must live with the results. That's not all the talking there is about lying and deception. In the Doctrine and Covenants we read, wherefore I, the Lord, have said that the fearful and the unbelieving and all liars, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie, and the whoremonger and the sorcerer shall have their part in that lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. In Doctrine and Covenants, section 129, verse 7. More very, very scary, tough talk about deception. It is contrary to the order of heaven for a just man to deceive. 2 Nephi, chapter 9, verse 34. Woe unto the liar, for he shall be thrust down to hell. So I think it's fair to say by general authorities' speeches and by revelations to Joseph Smith to ask, do they walk the talk? But deception is the common thread.